Hey, it's Maria Brown. Turn the volume up now. We're dialing in your day from the inside out. Regulate your nervous system. Let's go. Breathe in, breathe out. Feel the rhythm. Oh, from stress to steady, watch you listen and grow with Maria Brown on the Mind Body Flow. Regulate your nervous system.
Welcome back to Regulate Your Nervous System. I'm Maria Brown, and I am so excited to bring to you our guest, Katie White, and she is the owner of Heartlight Studio. And I want to give her entire introduction absolute justice. So I'm going to read for you my introduction of her. She is a former educator who learned firsthand that insight alone doesn't create change. Safety does. After years of complex health issues and challenges and nervous system dysregulation, she turned toward breathwork, movement, and creative practices as pathways back to the body. Kate is the creator of this amazing program. I cannot wait for you to see what this is all about. It's called Body Odyssey, a body-led, creativity-based approach to nervous system regulation, and it helps people partner with their bodies instead of fighting them. And I'm going to repeat that. It helps people partner with their bodies instead of fighting them. And when I read that, Kate, I just get this idea of us dancing with our body, dancing with our demons, dancing with our angels in coming into this self of safety through this program, Body Odyssey. So tell me just a little bit about how you came up with Heartlight Studio. I think of Heartlight and I think of E.T., but I'm sure it had nothing to do with E.T. Tell me about Heartlight. How did you come up with that name?
When I was teaching, specifically teaching fifth graders, which favorite grade to teach because of the sass, because of the angst, because of the dysregulation, and helping bring them back into coherence. And I learned that term because I was a Heart Math Institute follower, and I used their programs. I did not get their trainings and things. I had a person on staff who had done that, and she proctored me. So I used the programs with students, and I would teach them about the brain-heart coherence, and I would do this meditation with them about the light in our heart, this golden heart light, and it was modeled after their golden heart meditation. And we would use that heart light to not only heal ourselves, send energy to ourselves, but I was teaching third grade on 9/11, and we gathered in circle and we used our heart light and sent it over the people of New York and just did fireworks of heart light over all of the places in New York that might need it. And then we brought that heart light back and used it to heal ourselves again, to close those wounds. And so heart light was always so near and dear to my heart. And when I retired and went through this whole body process, which we'll talk more about, I'm sure, but then realized that I could help other people with it and wanted to create a business. Heartlight was at the center of it. It was what I named my studio, Heartlight Studio.
I love that story. And, I was a teacher at the time too. I was working with ninth graders and I was teaching 3 periods in a row on 9/11 and didn't know anything had happened until after period 3. And that was after the first plane had hit and then the second plane had just hit when I finished. And at the high school level, our children knew what was going on, but the elementary school, they didn't know anything. And just hearing that story, my goodness, how everybody could have really used that moment with you, that you transformed this whole experience from Heart Math Institute, which I love to begin with.
Yeah.
In that moment. And so that story has a really incredible place in my heart now that you shared that. So my heart is lit up totally.
just in our experience together, when I started hearing you talk about heart math, I'm like, this connection is so beautiful. So at my elementary school, we did not tell the students.
Yeah.
At my daughter's elementary school, they did tell the students.
Interesting.
And they watched the news as it was happening on TV. So all across the world, we know that there were all levels of involvement on that day. And, to me, the best thing we could do is go within and understand that even if we can't do anything, we can do everything by supporting through love.
There was a lot of fear at the high school because they had parents who were working in Manhattan and there were no cell phones, right? All the cell tower,
Yeah.
everything went down. So all their cell phones didn't work. I was a research room and had one of the only phones that led out to a 212 or 718 area code. And so all the kids were coming in my room and they were using the phone, which if anybody from Sayville High School is listening to that now, they'd be like, she's not allowed to do that. I was just like, come in. It was like a safe haven. As educators, I love that you were embodying that. So thank you for sharing that
Yeah.
story. Amazing. So I want to ask you a question. What was the one moment that you can recall that allowed you to recognize that there was more about being connected to the body than just operating from the stories in our head, operating from our brain? When did you get that aha moment?
So I wish I could tell you that I got that aha moment as my body was sending me signals, because it sent me signals for decades. And I would just hush, 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 go sit in the corner, hush, 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 and keep moving on. Use my body as this workhorse. And for those who don't know, I have a history of blood clots in the brain, and the first one really was very frightening. I was shocked and sick and just went to Mayo Clinic and had emergency surgery because I also had a subdural hematoma at the same time, and thought I'd come home changed, right? Wrote letters goodbye to everyone and wrote, if I make it through, my commitments. And
Oof.
the minute that I was able to walk again and take my life back, I put those letters to the side and tucked them in the pillow. And I buried them in the ground and just went back to life. And then the second blood clot happened and my left leg would not work. And so I dragged my leg for a few steps. Did I go to the hospital? No. Until a week later when the blood clot took over and insisted that I do. And so I'm telling those stories because you don't have to have these major things to be dimming the conversation that your body's having with you. And I did that over and over and over again. And it really was not until I retired. And that was 17, 18 years after the first blood clot. I just
Wow.
kept pushing through all of those years. And more body things happened. And it wasn't until my liver said, okay, I'm done. Done. You don't choose to live with me. I'm out. And that woke me up. I had found Whitney Freya, and had found a creative practice and had started reconnecting with that heart of who I was and realizing that creativity had a role in my life and had a role to bringing me back. And I'm sure I'm going to jump ahead on the conversation here because I did that for years as well. And I'm sitting in my studio, which whoever thought I'd have a studio, who'd ever think that I would consider myself an artist, that came out of bringing me to my knees and clawing at the ground to find what it was that was missing in my life. And I lived for a few years thinking it was creativity. I just had to get back to creativity. And it wasn't until this women's synergy meeting and this stranger to me, Maria Brown, presented this breathwork session. And I was drawn to that session. Now, I hadn't gone to many of the women's synergy meetings before. And honestly, I wish I could say I'd gone since. I pop in and out. But Maria, the day that you did that breath work was the moment that I knew that coherence, going back to that heart math reference, that I'd been living incoherently for all those years. And that coherence was the way back home. And that breath work was part of that. And then I began to understand movement after that. But it was that moment, Maria. It was that day. It was that session with you when I understood that that had to come back online for me.
Well, again, my heart is lit up, and I will never forget your response when everybody came back to presence. And I said, "Does anybody want to share?" And you were just like, "Holy shit! I don't know what that just was, but I want more of it." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." I was like, "That was amazing." For me, that was amazing because on my scale of like breathwork sessions, it was one of the slower introductory. We're going to play with some gratitude and basically, meet our inner goddess and play with our inner goddess. And it was amazing. But I want to jump back just for a moment because some of the things that you said were so incredible. You started about talking about this incoherence, right? This brain body incoherence, and that you were not paying attention to the signals in your body. And these are major signals in your body for major things, and blood clots in your liver, and not just one blood clot, but two. And then, you had these letters that were written with the reality that tomorrow is a gift. And that definitely changed your mindset immediately. But it began with body set. And that's what really is interesting because a lot of people that I interface with, they all say, well, I feel disconnected from my body and I just got to get into the right mindset. And here you clearly demonstrated that body set, right? The breath work brought you there, but what guided you there ahead of time was this creative practice.
Yeah.
And I love the phrase creative wellness. It's not one that I coined at all. And I use it in a different way than it was originally coined. But you are using a creative practice to bring you back home to yourself and to even figure out who Katie White was in this moment in time. So that is incredible. And I hope the audience can see the connection to this amazing journey that you've been on. And honestly, your courage and strength are so inspiring. And I'm just so honored that breathwork session was a part of your journey that has shifted you into the person that you're becoming. I love that. And I'm just so excited that you're going to share what is going on and this whole Body Odyssey program that you described.
Well, and the other thing with that is I had Body Odyssey created before I met you. I knew it was going to be a way that I helped people reconnect with their bodies through creativity. I couldn't bring it alive. It just would not birth. It would not come out. It would not manifest itself in a way that I felt comfortable with it. Whitney tried to push me. I had another group that was trying to push me until I really used the breath work, the movement, and leaned into the gifts that I had developed myself, that all of that came into a product or a process really that could transcend my own life and could impact others. And that is such a gift in itself. I'm so grateful that I'm on this whole journey of my life. I really am. I'm grateful that I had the years of being an administrator, of being a teacher, of living with the illnesses and the conditions that I had, because it does create sunshine in every day today. And while I did go back to another 18 years of really not living coherently, that moment never left me. And that commitment to being the best me never left me. It's just I didn't understand that being the best me had to start within. And it wasn't all of this stuff that I was doing outside and living from my head, problem solving and looking at what do I do and how do I go, which path, which turn, which this, which that. It doesn't have anything to do with that. There are multiple paths to where we're going. What it has to do with is how are we getting there? And the breath work really helped me
Yeah,
connect
I
with that.
love that. I love too that like the program evolved from
Mhm.
your journey of feeling into it instead of thinking through it. And I always have these situations for myself, which again, I was living kind of this robotic life for a long period
Yeah.
of time. And once I started just closing my eyes and say, okay, get out of my head because I'm so
Yeah.
anxious about what decision I'm going to make. And is it going to be the right one or is it going to be the wrong one? And, and then all of a sudden just going into my body and go, well, what does it feel like if I do this? And what's the piece that's missing? Like, what is it that I need to know? And I may not get the answer right away, but once I put it out there that there's a piece missing and I'm not sure what it is,
Yeah.
it just shows up. And again, Body Odyssey was this program and process that was being created in your mind. And then your body brought the answers
Yeah.
slowly once it was supposed to all come together.
Yeah.
And I just love that whole story. So you often say, and I wrote this down because I was really taken by it. You say you teach from the middle, not from a polished or healed finished line. Can
Yeah.
you tell me a little bit about that? I just love that whole idea because
Yeah.
that's not
So
what you hear from most people.
no. And honestly, part of what made me hold on Body Odyssey all that time was I kept, but I'm not healed yet. But I'm not healed yet. But I'm not healed yet. When I'm healed, then I can be the teacher. When I've gotten to the mountaintop, then I can be the guru. And teaching from the middle is that this lifetime of mine, what I've come to understand is that the lessons for me are going to come through my body. Understanding that, knowing that, for me, that has meant a new diagnosis, a new diagnosis, a new diagnosis. And so the point at which I understood I was teaching from the middle was a point at which I had lost over 100 pounds and
Oof.
I had healed my liver and I had um, gotten a knee replacement and I was out moving and hiking and I was on top of the world with my body in a place that I hadn't been since I was doing cartwheels around the neighborhood when I was 9. And there was a thing on my eye and I looked in the mirror and I kind of got in there to try to get it off and my eye peeled off in my hand, the sclera of my eye. And I went to the emergency room and because that's an emergency, right? Middle of the night emergency. And I kind of fell to my knees again, like, oh my God, are you kidding me? I I'm on top of the world. I'm all healed. Why do I need a new diagnosis now? Why do I need to worry that I might lose vision in this eye? Why? And it was so clear to me that it's because we're not teaching from the mountaintop. We're teaching from the villages and from the journey up the mountain.
Hmm.
I'm teaching from the middle of healing myself and becoming whole myself. And I use the word healing for healing the body. I use the word wholeness for coming to wholeness in my psyche, in my spirit, in that everything not body. So wholeness and healing to me are one. That's my journey
Yeah,
in this life is coming to wholeness in a spiritual way, and healing is coming to wholeness in the body.
I love that.
Being as healed as I can, but I come from the middle of both of those. I'm not on the mountaintop with either one. And so those of us who are in the middle, and I think most of us are, we all have something to offer the world. And my message in that is we don't have to wait. And I don't have to wait. It's a message to myself that I don't have to wait to be healed to be the one that can help others.
Exactly. And I love the fact that you said teaching as we're climbing the mountain,
Yeah.
because you may hit a peak and then hit a small valley, and then there's a peak again. And
Yeah.
then there may be a valley, and then there's a peak again. And so, are we ever truly at the top of the mountain? And I just have to go back because you said two things that are not the thing that just comes out of anybody's mouth any day. So when I lost 100 pounds and I healed my liver, like what?
Yeah.
Tell me about that a little bit, because
So,
this is really
yeah,
a part of your journey.
yeah,
I
it
don't
is.
know anybody who has ever
It
told me, oh yeah, well, when I just, lost 100 pounds and healed my liver, things really started to change.
So when I retired because we were coming back from COVID, and the year that we went virtual from COVID in March, I was already at the point of having to push a chair around the hallways with me in
Mm.
case I needed to sit. I had to push my own desk with me because I couldn't sit behind a student desk because it was too low. If I stood, I would pass out. So I was in pretty bad shape and didn't understand that. And one of the results of an exam was that my liver was 3.8 on a scale of 4 towards cirrhosis,
Mm.
and from fatty liver. And the last time I weighed, I was 320 pounds. And so the liver is what woke me up. The liver is what it wasn't the not being able to raise my hands over my head. It wasn't the blood clots. It was the liver. I knew the liver couldn't be healed. You would think I'd know that about the brain too, but it was the blood clots. It wasn't the brain, it was the blood, right?
The
And
stories we tell ourselves.
yeah, I know, right? And so the journey to healing the liver involved losing weight. Losing weight was number 1, and I had put off my mother had been begging me to consider gastric bypass or bariatric surgery of some kind, and the liver's what woke me up and made me very quickly get on a fast track. I left my home. I went to live at my mother's because she's near Duke University. I stayed there for 13 months. I had
Wow.
the gastric sleeve. I didn't do the bypass. I did the sleeve. I lost the weight. I probably lost 75 pounds before I ever moved home. And,
In 13 months.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So it's been 2 years now, and I'm losing weight again, reconnecting with the body and understanding that this is a daily practice, not just "Oh, when I don't feel well, this is something I've got to do for myself." And so breath work helped me through a lot of those instances without realizing that's what I was doing. Part of my healing was walking in the woods and going into nature and inhaling and exhaling intentionally without knowing that I was probably doing a 4-4, understanding that I was doing these things that was bringing me back into coherence. And
Which
so,
nature can do also, right?
yes,
Nature
yeah,
can bring you into a state of
that's
coherence.
that's a huge part of my journey. I can't walk on a treadmill. I need to be out in nature. I can. I just prefer to be in nature. But I understand now that that's because it does help me come back into coherence. So that process of listening to my body and saying, okay, submitting, going to my knees and saying, all right, I hear you, I'm listening, I honor you, I love you, I want you to be healed, and
Mm.
sending that love to my own body, literally putting my hands on my body and loving my body, and just this person behind me that is me before the surgery. And that is part of the Body Odyssey process too, is literally putting your hands on the parts of your body that you might have not sent love to, that you might have not been whole with, and just loving her for the journey she's brought me through, and loving her for the temple that she is, for the learning space that she is, because I don't have to go to the mountaintop to find the temple. The temple is here. And
Ah,
so that journey of healing the body and coming back into wholeness, healing and wholeness for me are one journey, and it's in this body temple.
I love that. And I can't wait for you to describe Body Odyssey because I've done it and it's incredible. But before we do that, I just want to go back to the nervous system regulation and the breath work because over the years that you have been doing breath work, there was a period of time where you really struggled with those breath holds,
Yeah.
right? And that's very common. And it was common with me as well, although I didn't understand the reason why initially, where I just felt so panicked. I just thought, oh, okay, it's just the CO2 going to my brain telling me I'm suffocating. And my body's like, what? And it was just freaking out. But it became more than that because I noticed as I was training to be a breathwork facilitator that everybody else and I was doing this comparison thing, everybody else that I was training with, they were holding their breath for minutes at a time. And I was like gasping for air in 30 seconds because I was so panicked.
Yeah.
And so I know that you went through the same thing. Mine turned out to be birth trauma. I was a blue baby. So mine turned out to be birth trauma. And once I went through that, it resolved. And now I can hold my breath. Tell me about your experience because that's where magic really happens. When we create that intermittent hypoxic environment in our body, the magic happens in our body for healing, for building up our immune system, for all of these amazing things that happen in that moment. So tell me a little bit about that.
I'm going to take everything back to you, Maria, because my understanding of what was happening, I didn't know. All I did, I was shaming myself. I was, here
Mm,
we go. You can't even hold your breath. Yeah. Thinking about attending one of your retreats and picturing myself doing breath holds in front of you and going, oh my gosh, she's going to see how I flail and my legs go up in the air sometimes. And I'm feeding on my chest trying to get through. And even in your gold membership, I would turn my video off until yesterday because I
mm,
didn't want for other people to see my struggle with the breath holds. And then it's been a process. But one of the things you said probably a year ago was your blue baby experience because I had a period of being okay and being able to get through it. And then I had a period of I can't even do it, even with the beating of the chest and the inhaling when I needed to, taking sips. And your blue baby story took me back to a time that I had been choked.
mm,
And working with you in a one-on-one session helped me to release that story because
mm,
there was that being pinned up against a wall by my neck
yeah.
and memory in my psyche. Every time I would try to activate the breath, my body went into believing it was being choked again.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened between that I can do it now, but oh, now my body is going to come up with that memory. I don't have to know it. All I had to
Right.
know was that I had to do something about it. And so then I got to work with my body, with my breath, with the memories, with release, with the magic of that inner pharmacy to go into healing that wound to help bring me into wholeness. So, I still, if I go anytime at all where I don't do the breath work on my own, if I put it off to once a month with you or once every few months with you, then I'm going to struggle again physically, but that's because my body's not in shape with it. When I stay with it now, I don't have those moments of panic. I don't have those moments of, yes, my body panics, but my whole being doesn't panic, which is what was happening before.
Yeah.
My everything was going into panic and saying, forget it, I can't do this. This is a time to walk away, time to check out, gone. And I'd pretend, I'd be a pretender.
Yeah.
And that, I didn't want that anymore.
And it is a practice. It's like anything. If you don't go to yoga, your body is struggling to do the poses correctly. If you don't go to the gym for a while, if you work out, again, you're going to do less repetitions because your muscle memory
Yeah.
has changed. And again, muscle memory is likely what connects back to that moment of choking. I had a woman once who, in a big group session I was doing, At the end, she was like in tears. And I said, "What's the matter?" She goes, "I just felt like I was suffocating." And I said, "Well, was there ever a time in your life when you were a child that you felt like you were suffocating?" She said, "Oh, I nearly drowned in a pool when I was 2." And I was like, that's likely the trauma that came back right away. And then afterwards, like she came to a whole bunch of sessions. She was just like, just the fact that my subconscious actually said, "I get that, but you're not in a pool and you're not drowning now. You're just doing breath work."
Yeah.
She said I was able to do it longer and longer. And when we are doing it as a practice, it's amazing how long you can get to the point. And I think you had that moment about a month ago where you just said, I used to fear going into those breath holds, those breath retentions, and now I don't want to come out of them because it's
Yeah.
such a blissful
Yeah.
place to go, right? When you hold your breath for that magical number of seconds, 90 seconds or more, these DMT-like chemicals, they may truly be DMT, but nobody has proven that yet. These DMT-like chemicals come out in your body and it brings you to that blissful state. And for anyone who doesn't know what DMT is, it is a chemical that's released before death. And it allows for you to have this calm, blissful feeling before death and likely is also elevated when you're born, when you're coming through the birth canal. And it's produced in the lower lungs. So when we're doing that deep rhythmic breathing, that's where it originates from.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've been talking a lot about breath work and nervous system dysregulation. I want to get more into the whole Body Odyssey piece, where I want you to talk a little bit about how you bring movement and expressive arts as a whole into nervous system regulation.
Okay. So Body Odyssey is this beautiful process of coming to truly love the body that we're living within and live a more full life in the body that is carrying us through. And the beautiful thing that as I was creating this is this embrace of our body has to happen physically, spiritually, mentally. And the word embrace just kept being there. Embrace, embrace, embrace. And so I looked at the things that I'm doing, and the first thing we do is we get into our body and just sometimes it's just touching our body. It's feeling the earth and feeling our connection to it. The next, if you use the word embrace as the acronym, then comes the movement. I was not the kind of person who could dance freely in public or who, after in teenage years, I was the dancer, the roller skater, cartwheeler, the whatever, but everything kind of locked. Like I became this robot who didn't like to move in public. And so the movement piece is really just becoming more comfortable with movement, but it's also telling your body that you are safe when you are moving through the trauma. So moving helps you move through the trauma before you can get to a state of dysregulation. And so sometimes it's just a sway in the wind, like you're a tree. Sometimes it's a dance break. Sometimes it's something as simple as a yoga move or as magnificent as a Koya experience. And whatever it is, whatever movement we're choosing to use that day, and I teach people to choose movements that work for them, but movement comes first. And then comes the breath work, because once we're in our body and we're safe in our body, then we can allow that breath work to really do its magic. And so those three things, those are the foundation that if we do nothing else on a daily basis, we need to do those three things. Breathing with intention after we've moved to safety, after we've literally gotten into our body. And because when I say into our body, it's because so often we spend our lives dissociated or up in our mind, living from the neck up, not recognizing that there's something below the chin. We're these bobbleheads who move through life. And so getting into our body is essential. So we've got the embodiment, the movement, the breath work, which opens us up to then realign and reawaken with our true selves, which is that cheerleader self that's inside us. And this is my favorite
Mm.
part of the program sometimes, because so often people are working with the inner child and healing the inner child, and I have a little Katie that I sewed up there that I do that inner child work too. But this work with our inner cheerleaders is allowing that version of ourselves who always knew we'd make it, that version of ourselves that knew that there was possibility in this world and never gave up on possibility, that version of ourselves who just likes to blow bubbles and wear glitter boots and hold pom-poms, right? We realign with that version of ourselves. And so I do a meditation where I take people into a stadium where every version of yourself is there. And every version of yourself, and you can take that down as intricate as you wish to. It can be every second of every day that you've lived your life filled stadium. It can be one person for every year of your life, one person for every day of your life, however you want to do it. But every single person's in there cheering for you. And they know the answers. And the favorite version of yourself is the one you don't know yet. The 80-year-old,
Oh,
the
I love that.
90-year-old, the 100-year-old versions of yourself who go, yeah, you're going to make it through this. Here's how you do it. You find Maria Brown breathwork, and you're going to do this breathwork session that you're not going to know what hit you, but you're going to know that's the cue. And seeing those versions of yourself who I don't know how I'm going to make it, but 80-year-old me knows. And so I can tap into that knowledge,
Mm.
that faith, that I can borrow their confidence in me. I can borrow their love for me. I can borrow their faith in me when I have lost it. So that's the embrace movement, breath work, reawakening the cheerleader. There's lots more with that. I've got some meditations with that I'm getting ready to put up into my Substack to share with people so that they can experience that themselves. And then we work on alignment, the body, mind, spirit, understanding alignment and knowing when to choose whatever that is our body aligned with this. I'm really good at knowing, mentally analyzing, knowing when things are right to do. I've learned to bring on the body and ask the body by tuning into the body. You did this earlier by just putting your hand here. What does this feel like?
Mm.
Anchoring into, I put one hand in my lap and I put one hand on my heart, or one hand on my belly and one hand on my heart, depending on what I'm looking at doing. I teach people how to know alignment within their bodies. And there are a number of ways we can do it: muscle testing, body pendulum testing, just tuning into what it feels like. So that's the alignment. And then the creative practice comes online where we do things like paint yes and paint the word love. And something as simple as that, everybody can do it. It could just be doodling on a page. It could be drawing circles and squares. It doesn't matter. It's getting into the creative aspect. It could be sourdough. It could be gardening. It could be, however it is that you bring creativity into your life. But it's connecting with that knitting, crocheting. I've got people who've worked on stained glass as their creative practice as we're moving through things. And then the last one is putting it into your practice in your life, embodied living, and doing that with
Mm.
intention and knowing, okay, so now I have this embodiment practice. How am I going to do this every day? Because, I forget. So could I create a checklist for myself? Could I put the slippers by the bed so that I know when I put my feet in the slippers that I'm grounding and I'm not going to literally put my feet in those slippers, but they're the cue to me to ground before I get out of bed?
Oh, I love
Or
that.
whatever practice that you need to do so that you are, wherever it is, you might be great at grounding, you might be great at getting movement in, but you've forgotten the breath work. So we start there. We use these practices you already have and then bring them on. You may be someone who does all three of those, but you've lost faith in yourself. So we bring on the
Mm.
cheerleaders. You may have all of those, but you don't know how to tell when a decision is a yes or a no. So we work with alignment. We come on at whatever state that you need most after we do the initial assessment. It's such a beautiful process, and it's been so beautiful to watch other people take this and embody it and really go on their own body odysseys.
And I had the opportunity to experience all of this. And I'm going to try and recap this as best that I can. So I love that you started talking about being in our heads and that nervous system dysregulation coming from or originating from not feeling safe in our body, that disconnect between the brain and the body. And then you went into this movement. That movement can create the feeling of safety, especially when you are touching and truly connecting somatically with your body. And that movement can shift you out of that fight or flight response. When the brain says we're not safe, it's like, all of a sudden our sympathetic nervous system just goes, we're in fight or flight and maybe freeze. And that movement alone can start to shift. And then bringing in the breath work, which lets you down regulate even more. And then from the breath work, once you're in this regulated state, you get to call on your inner cheerleader to help embody and envision this amazing body and person that you're becoming. And then using that creative, expressive piece with the art to use it as a form of meditation and process all of that. And then making it a practice and having all of those cues, like your slippers, to ground and embody it as a practice. I think that was all of the steps. Did I miss any of them?
Alignment,
Oh,
the
the
body, mind,
alignment.
spirit. Yeah.
Right. So the body, mind, spirit alignment comes in that in-between state after processing and then getting the opportunity to practice it on a daily basis. And what an amazing experience. I know when I was doing that with you, there were a number of women and everybody had a different experience because our own experience is so different. What has been the most rewarding part of being able to share this amazing program that you created out of your own life experience to bring to other people? What is the piece that sticks with you about being able to deliver this?
I will tell you, it is feeling like when Thomas Edison created electricity and went, yes, the light came on, the light bulb worked, someone else can flip a switch and the light goes on. That's how I felt, because this has worked for me now for several years and it just keeps getting better as I add. It worked some before the breath work. Once the breath work was online, it just, woo, I understood all of the other things that came with it. Watching that in someone else's life and hearing the stories and knowing that it literally changed how they show up for themselves now, that it literally shifted how they experience their lives, themselves, their families.
Mm.
That was, okay, yeah, I'm supposed to do this. This isn't just a pipe dream. This isn't just another one of those attempt and then give up on. This is real. This is it. And this is what I've been working my whole life at, experiencing my own body odyssey in order to help others understand their own bodies. And not everybody has a health journey. Not everybody needs Body Odyssey to learn or to heal their bodies. Some of them need to learn to love their bodies,
Mm-hmm.
or some of them need to learn to be in their bodies. I've experienced being dissociated, being out of love with my body, being injured, hurt, continuing to have diagnoses come up. And so there are all kinds of ways that we're on different odysseys. And so knowing that this transcends my odyssey and helps others on their own personal journeys has been just wow.
Yeah. And I know for me, I've had body image issues, right?
Right.
And I didn't lose 100 pounds, but I lost over 40 pounds from after the time that I went into menopause. And I just didn't feel good in my body.
Yeah.
But I had body image issues in my past. People had made comments and about my body. And so as an adult, I learned I had these body image issues. And your program provided the mechanism, the modalities for me to radically fall back in love with me and with the body that I'm living in.
Yeah.
And also the recognition that, you know, a diet isn't going to change it. Loving and caring for my body as if it's the most valuable vessel that I have. I only have one. It's my only true home. And that nobody's coming to rescue me. It's
Right.
up to me, right? At 62 years old, if I put my arm up and I've got this saggy area here, it's up to me to figure out how to lift the weights and make that into my daily routine. And at this age, I'm not going to build new muscle mass, but I can rebuild what I already have that I established at a younger age. And movement is so important. And I could be, well, okay, so next week it's going to be -8 degrees. I'm not going walking in -8 degrees, but I can dance.
Yep.
I can move. I can sit on my yoga mat and do what I can on my yoga mat.
Yep.
I can do these things. So it's all about choice, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times we stand in our own way and, and the choices seem very hard because we're here.
Right.
When we fall back in love with ourselves, radically fall back in love with ourselves,
Yeah.
the choice is not that hard. It's actually one of those really simple choices. And
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for my experience with your program and with you in doing that. It changed everything for me. And I'm sure the other women who were in that program have amazing testimonials for you as well. So, how can people find out more about you, more about what you're offering, more about Body Odyssey? Because as far as I'm concerned, everybody can use
Yeah.
a piece of Body Odyssey in their lives.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I think every woman will benefit from this, but I don't see this limited to women.
It's
I
not.
see this as a program for men, and
Mhm.
I also see this as something that teenagers could truly benefit from because they always have all of these image issues. It's just part of who they are as teenagers. I could
Yeah.
see this being an amazing teenage wellness program about staying connected to your body,
Yep.
how to, because they don't teach those things in school.
No.
They don't teach the students about the brain heart coherence. They don't teach them how to regulate them nervous systems. How
Yeah.
do they find you? How do they
Okay. So just to button that piece up, when I left education, we were teaching students how to emotionally regulate, but we were not teaching nervous system regulation. And
Mm,
so, that would be one aspect. And just as you mentioned, teenagers, I just imagine them looking to their 80-year-old self who sees
yeah.
them. I never did that, but what a beautiful connection. So, how people find me. So, I have several ways for you to find me. The first is my link tree where everything will be organized, and that is Katie White Heartlight. And so hopefully from that little conversation earlier, you'll remember Katie White Heartlight is my link tree. And then I have a website. It is joyfulanarchy.com because I'm working on ways to show up and be joyful in the face of the hell that's going on in the world of that best rebellion we can do is to be joyful and to find ways to do that. And so joyfulanarchy is joyfulanarchy.com is my website. And then I am on Substack as the embodied creative. And I hope you will follow me there. I've begun writing there. You can subscribe for free. There will be a podcast there very soon that opens up as well. So just reach out. I'm also on socials, Facebook and Instagram. You can find me there. Katie White Heartlight there as well. So just so very grateful for
So grateful to have
this,
you. And
Maria.
all of that information will be available for our viewers. So before we leave, is there anything that we didn't touch on that you would like to add?
One of the things I was thinking about is that this embrace process is often
Mm.
something that we do in a session in our space, right? But it's also something that we can take out with us into the world. One of the things I've started doing, because shopping was one of those things I did to cope. So if
Mm.
I'm out in public and I see my basket filling up, I do a dance party in the aisles. I go back to that movement and back to that breath, and I start putting stuff back on the shelves because the stuff that appeared in that cart was like the cookies as a kid that I would shove into my face to feel better. It's how I think I'm going to feel better, but how I truly feel better is doing these practices no matter where I am. And so this is a practice that can travel with you. And when you see those tells of yourself, because we're all working from the middle, right? We're not healed.
Mm.
These things are going to continue to show up. When you see those tells, pull out your favorite practice and do it. Try that. You don't even have to have gone through Body Odyssey to try a dance party in the aisles.
Amazing. So awareness, it all begins with awareness
It
and
does.
recognizing when we start to repeat those patterns that led us into this part of our lives where we become disconnected. So I love that. Thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you.
I am just so grateful that we had this time to really unpack Body Odyssey and how it came to be and what a gift it is that you are bringing to the world for everybody to have this opportunity for themselves to reconnect back with their body and fall radically in love with themselves again through Body Odyssey. So thank you.
Thank you
And
so much.
and thank you for joining us on Regulate Your Nervous System with Maria Brown. And you can always come back to this place and remember that when you regulate your nervous system, it is truly the gift that you can give to the world. So give back by nervous system regulation. And I will see you in the next episode. Have a beautiful day, and thank you for joining us.
Hey, it's Maria Brown. Turn the volume up now. We're dialing in your day from the inside out. Regulate your nervous system. Let's go. Breathe in, breathe out. Feel the rhythm. Oh, from stress to steady, watch you listen and grow with Maria Brown on the Mind Body Flow. Regulate your nervous system.